Ladies and gentlemen， 这是我们的第3个场次，疫后市场机会与实务。那在开始之前，我先介绍一下徽州台湾商会总会的简永吉会长也在我们线上，跟我们一起来参加。简会长你好。
你好，有听无？
有听哦。简会长前不久呢，也曾经参加我们那个TABA台湾徽州经贸协会的聚会。我没想到那么快他就回南非了，事业重要。那我们这个场次里头呢，有2个报告人，其中第一位报告人是比较特别的。Let me introduce visiting professors Dr. Nana Akua R.O.C. 艾如奎艾教授。那艾教授的 presentation 呢，他将用英语，我想呢，借助这个 slide presentation 呢，应该大家可以多做一些了解。那我跟艾教授第一次见面呢，是在奈及利亚驻华商务处所主办的一个场合里头，应该是在前年吧，前年底的时候认识的。那第2次呢，是他来这个我们 TABA 的协会办公室。他说他对我们的协会有一些好奇，那时候我们有私下做了一些对谈。第3次就在昨天贸协呢举办了一个中部西部徽州市场研讨会，艾如奎也在场，所以我们也大概稍微短暂的交流一下。那他今天所谈的呢是奈及利亚，如果你要去投资的话，它现在的现况是怎么样子的？那事实上呢，在前不久我被选上理事长之后呢，带着团队去拜访奈及利亚驻华商务处的阿麦的处长的时候，让我很惊讶的就是说，整个那个奈及利亚驻华商务处呢，已经准备好了大大小小总共有5、6本的宣传册子，装了满满一袋，里头呢提到很多奈及利亚一些鼓励投资的政策。那其中最吸引我一个就是所谓的 Zero Oil。就是说，奈及利亚希望以后的 GDP 成长呢，靠的不是卖原油，而靠的是大家从外面来的投资来促进他们的经济。我想这个也是艾教授等等会谈的。那第2个这个 speaker 第2个 speaker 呢是比较特别，他是政大的学生，他去年呢刚刚获得了联合国的有一个叫做赫特基金会的奖金，它是鼓励年轻人怎么样利用这些天然的材料，促成所谓的绿色工业，说它有一些直接的产品。那我们可以来看看，如果年轻人要到徽州去，事实上也是我们所鼓励的。你可以想一想，在你们新时代里头的一些新的思维，怎么样利用徽州天然的资源来创造你们的商业机会，同时后呢，也一样呢，能够像符合陈德生陈教授所谈的在地共生，然后来分享整个所谓大徽州。那现在呢，首先呢，我们请艾教授。
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you already are aware, I am here to talk about Nigerian market investment, opportunities and challenges. Now, I want to begin by inviting you. Thank you. I want to begin by inviting you to take a look at the position of Nigeria on the Africa map. You see that Nigeria is located almost equidistant to the major regions of the African continent. Now, what this inspires in my thinking is that Nigeria could easily be a hub of investments that could eventually spread in cascades of concentric circles to the rest of the African continent. Now, when we dive in closer to look at the Nigeria map in some detail, what it reveals is a colossal network of cities that are both ancient and modern. And here you have some of the most densely populated regions, especially in the southern region, some of the most densely populated regions on the African continent and perhaps in the world. Now, Nigeria is not some kind of monolith like most people would like to present. Nigeria has between 350 to 600 ethnic groups or nations, depending on who's doing the categorization. And this gives you the classical picture of a plural society. Now we look at the background on the Nigerian market. And what some of the sources have said, like the USAID, considers Nigeria a middle-income economy as well as an emerging market with expanding manufacturing, service, communications, technology, and entertainment sectors. The World Bank ranks Nigeria as 27th economy in the world, going by nominal GDP, and as the 24th largest in terms of purchasing power parity. World Bank data as of 2020 raised Nigeria as the largest economy in Africa, and the country also says that the country's emerging manufacturing sector is the largest on the continent and produces a large proportion of goods, services for the region, for the ECOWAS region. The ECOWAS, by the way, is ECOWAS is a free trade region that is similar to the European Schengen area, comprising about 15 countries on the West African sub-region. So Nigeria, even as at now, at the state at which the economy is operating, serves as a manufacturing hub for the whole region. Nigeria's population, as of 2014, was put by demographers as consisting of 212 million people. And this has a population projection growth factor of 2.54 to 3% per year. And this gives Nigeria one of its characteristics that makes it very interesting for people, for investors from all over the world. So this rapidly expanding middle class population has large middle class, which is also concentrated in the cities. And this middle class also has increased spending capacity. Now, when we look further in terms of what I call viewing the big picture, we could see that Nigeria, of the whole ECOWAS region that we mentioned earlier on, which is about 350 million people, Nigeria's population is about 60% of that. And when you view that in terms of in relative terms, you are looking at a population that is as large as the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Netherlands, Belgium, Austria, Switzerland, Ireland, Luxembourg, all put together. And according to the population projections, after 2023, Nigeria's population will already have outstripped the whole of Western Europe. Nigeria has one of the, Nigeria's projected population statistics as of 2022 has half of the population aged under 19 years. And about 65% of that population is under 30 years. According to the UN, Nigeria's population is expected to surpass that of the US by 2050, and the country could become the world's third most populous country by the end of the century. According to internet provider statistics, this population has at least 2/3 of them connected to the internet. Amongst Nigeria's huge growing population, like we pointed out, is the fastest growing and consuming middle class in the Africa region. However, in looking at the investment opportunities and potentials of Nigeria, what I find in attending seminars and fora, especially those organized by government agencies, is some kind of an attempt to present only the rosy part of the picture. So there is no balancing information to also show the other side of the picture, which could present challenges. I understand that, especially, but some of these fora and conferences are mostly organized by government agencies, and they are eager to sell the opportunities for investment in the country. But I think it's only fair and balanced if we also look at the other side of the picture to understand what risks and challenges might present itself for anyone who's going to invest in the region. So I look at the challenges that face investors in Nigeria, and I try to categorize them. I try to organize them into about 3 themes. And the first theme I come up with is what I call the infrastructure-related challenges. Amongst the infrastructure-related challenges, the first is the question of power supply. Another is the transportation issue, while another is the low level of e-commerce infrastructure, what I call the supply chain issue. Then the second group of challenges are what I call the governance-related challenges. Here, I mentioned the issue of regulations, the issue of corruption, the question of ease of doing business, the question of inefficiencies, for example, in the ports, in the airports, the functionality of the river ports, the refineries. And of course, the ease of doing business is also related to some of these things because the World Bank already have an index for ease of doing businesses, which is based on a number of indicators. And Nigeria, incidentally, is not ranked very high on those on that matrix. Then there is also the finance-related challenges, and here we have issues like access to finance and then market risk. With access to finance, I'm referring to how easy it is for businesses in Nigeria, both the ones that are domestic and the ones that are international, to have access to finance that is provided through the Nigerian financial system. Incidentally, Nigeria has a relatively advanced banking industry because they've carried out a series of reforms over the last 2 decades to be abreast of what is happening in other places. However, the financial system, the banking system, is not designed yet, or is not oriented to immediately take care of this problem. The market risk is more of a universal thing. Then, of course, there's also the challenge of insecurity. There is Islamic insurgency in northern Nigeria, and there are about 5 terror organizations existing in these places. Then there is the harassment, there's kidnapping, and there's agitations for resource control in the Niger Delta region. Now we go to the opportunities, and amongst the opportunities, of course, I've already made the point that Nigeria is central to whatever economic and socio-political fortunes that comes to the Africa region. Now, the opportunities are abundant. They're in the agro-allied sector, the e-commerce sector, the education sector, the film industry. Nigeria has the second largest film industry in the world, and it's at least in terms of how many movies they produce, they are ahead of the United States. And they have also made a lot of cross-cultural movies, and this is an area where investors in Taiwan could make a lot of money. There is also the Halal business industry. 45% of the Nigerian population is Muslim, and Muslims, based on the what is permissible under Islamic law, are amenable to these categories of halal businesses. Then there's the import market, which interestingly, most Taiwanese businesses are already involved in. There's manufacturing, there's the medical industry, there are different categories of partnerships, there are the pharmaceuticals, there is real estate, there is consumer retail, there is solid minerals. Nigeria has several solid minerals, some of which have even not been evaluated, but these ones already are being exploited. There's a tourism industry, there's transportation. Now, the thing that's, part of what is important is how to navigate these issues. Maybe in the Q&A we can go into this. I don't have a lot of time to go into them right now. Then there's also the issue of the prospects. Part of how to master the prospects of the Nigeria investment industry, it includes, amongst others, leveraging the huge demographic market potential, leveraging the ECOWAS free trade movement, the CFTA, which is the Africa Free Trade Continental Free Trade Area, and the AGOA. Fortunately, previous presentations in the morning had dwelt on these areas. And then looking at the future, we believe that if the Taiwan investment is focused on Nigeria, what we're likely to see is the solution to what some academics in Taiwan are already discussing, and that is about how Taiwan is going to escape the high-income trap. I think that if Taiwan should hollow out most of its industrial investments in Nigeria, they will be able to compete some of their competitors now. And the same also could be said about the Africa region, because Taiwan businesses have the knack, the history of being foresighted to look at areas where in the future the economy is going to become very dynamic and to invest in those areas. They did that with the People's Republic of China's economy, and now they reaped a lot of benefit. However, there's a lot of, following the pandemic and all the post-pandemic dynamics, there is some of the trends show that there's a deindustrialization in China. People are moving their investments to other parts of the world. And also there's a trade war going on between the United States and China. And that already has made China not a very choice area to invest now. And of course, there's also the growing tensions between Taiwan and China. And these are issues that people need to consider. I mean, the Taiwan business environment need to consider. Interestingly, the TABA is already doing a lot in this area. And on that note, I could say that there is no better time than now to start investing in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor R.O.C. The second speaker, 我们第二位的那个演讲者呢，他是一位在学的学生，但是他的一些 idea 创新呢，他要告诉各位年轻的下一代，你要怎么样去找有利的地方，然后去做投资。
OK， 大家午安，我是政治大学中文系大四的学生吕杰毅。因为我们今天的评论讲者是会用英文，所以我的简报是以中文的方式呈现，但是我在演讲的时候会以英文。Okay, all right, so let's get started. So, hi, my name is J.E. and this is our topic today about the cassava in Africa, how we allocate it to environment-friendly sector and the market. So, let me introduce a little bit about myself, like how do I come up with this idea? So recently, I just participated in a worldwide student startup accelerator called HALT Prize, which are founded by Clinton Foundation, HALT Foundation, and associated by United Nations. And fortunately, we got the world champion title. So this is basically the competitions about SDGs and how we got a related business to ESG. And you can look at the map. This is actually how much country participate in this type of competition. And there's over 350,000 teams this year, and we are the final winner. So because of this competition and the experiences, I would like to share some insight and some experience that we use at the cassava market. All right. So first, we know like environmental. This is a really cliche issue about environment, but we are all working on it. And right now, there's 400 million plastic are wasted during every year. So this come up with an idea with our topic for food from this hall price competition. And people are banning single-use plastic, single-use straw, and a lot of plastic bags that you have to use reusable, which are governed by the government. So actually, this is how the environmental world will look like, especially when United Nations declared like in 2030 we are all gonna get rid of the plastic. So we know there's a market right here, and we try to figure out how we can work for it. And so lucky we find cassava, which my teammates are from Paraguay, but actually it's not Africa, but they all use cassava as their main protein and main food. So we do a huge market research about this. So let me talk about my startup a little bit, and I'm going to relate it to the market. Welcome to Uproot. We are providing biodegradable products which are used by the raw material cassava. And right now, we are looking forward to fix the problem of cassava waste in not only Africa, but South America. And so why this cassava is so unique, different than corn, like people used to hear, the PLA or the sea salt, a lot of or even coffee waste. Because cassava contains a lot of starch inside. And this makes it super convenient in industrial use, especially manufacturing. We could mod it into almost every single-use plastic, even hard plastic. And I brought some items outside of the conference room. So if all of you are interested, we'll come to touch and feel what's different about it. All right. And about the environmental friendly issue and awareness. So while we're using cassava biodegradable product, every kilo we use, we replace 2 kilos of cassava waste, especially which they are warehoused, and 3 kilos of carbon are diminished. Right. So we are using cassava starch as our main material. So while this manufacture process and technology are using, but basically we're all still focusing on the raw material itself, the food. What's wrong with the food? So in our research, not only in South America, but Africa, there's only 17% that are industrial use. Otherwise, they're just stored at warehouse as a goods for contain the market balance. All right, so this is basically our products, our slate of product right now. We got straws, we got cauteries, and we got bags, fortunately, last week. Okay, so now, about these insight about the cassava, we see there's a really huge market behind this cassava, or we call it tapioca, or in Spanish we call it mandioca. It's all the same. It's basically a symbol of Taiwanese culture, the bubble tea. So as we are present all these ideas to investor and VC during hall price competition, people get eye-catched by our product because they can easily relate it to this kind of drinks or goods that people like. And this is all made by cassava. So cassava, actually, not only you can fry it or smash it into potatoes, it got a lot of use. And today I'm focusing on the food and how it could be in the future. All right. So there's a simple starch cassava-based food that we eat, or people eat every day in Africa and South America, in which it has a huge market because a lot of them are not industrialized and are wasted. And there are just food waste. It could feed a lot more people if we properly use. And this is the idea which I came from with Professor Chen, that we organize a Africa research study group, that we want to really dig out what kind of potential that the market needs about the cassava. And right now, as our competition going, we invent a different type of slave of prototypes that we want to show investor, yeah, cassava can do a lot of things. It's not only the kind of protein people use. It's something that is magical and it's valuable. So this is actually a thing that women used to fix their hair, and it's all made by cassava, which it's biodegradable in 180 days, and like people love it. But right now, we're still looking about the market that could consume this kind of product. So right now, focusing on African market, we'd like to talk more about food. So actually, last week we visited a manufacturer in Taiwan which supply all the bubble tea ingredients. Start from the like ganfen powder and lots of different kind of sugar sauce. And eventually the super ingredient, the cassava, which is a bubble that people used to drink every day. And in the foreign country, like in outside of the world, people call it boba or bubble tea. But it's actually all the same. It comes from cassava. Yeah, so before we related it to the market, let me tell like why is cassava a good thing to relate it to ESG. And for all the businessmen, businesswomen under the conference room, actually it's a really good idea to prove that cassava is something could be re-evaluated. And it's something, it's a circular economy that which we could prevent food waste in like right now, not in the future, but right now. So the problem we used to do in the market research, like overall product, just like what I say, because 70% is in Paraguay, but over the world, there's only 12% will go into industrial processing, and 15% go into people as a food. So actually, there's a lot of waste. And cassava, it's kind of a root that grows so easily, so people didn't notice like how much valuable it could get inside. So actually, this is a process picture about how our cassava biodegradable product are used. So we evaluate, start from the tapioca, the starch, and then that's the whole process. We turn it into starch-based master batch, and we work with OEM and try to do like injection and compress to make it happen to a real product. So for this kind of thought and the work experience we have as a startup, like people love it, especially like the United Nations and like the government, like NGO. But we know there's still a lot of problem inside this market. But to prove that you are participating in a ESG, which are environmental, social, governance, and SDGs, this actually is a great topic that people could try to use. Okay, back to the bubble tea. So right now we want to show the awareness that how Taiwanese culture symbol of a bubble tea could relate it to Africa, and especially are the food that they are wasted. So this is kind of like blow my mind. Like, wow, we can evaluate it. It's all about like supply and how we're gonna wear these kind of ingredient and find potential customers in Africa. So right now we're still in a research-based phases with Professor Chen and my colleague and my teammates. But we see the market during these cassava, yeah, right. And right now we're figuring out in the bubble tea world, especially in Africa, people used to like to drink colorful and like boba, which they are like juicy and it could pump out a lot of juice out of it. So it's kind of slightly different of what we used to drink in Taiwan right now. So market research are a really important phase that we would like to dig out. So me and like my teammates, which also are undergrads in the NCCU, we decided to go to Africa this July to really look at the market, like what kind of drinks they need and what kind of supply chain we should set up while we are looking forward to transfer not only the process, but the ingredient from Taiwan. And eventually, for 在地公司, we would allocate it and process in the market, which we could help to gain more work opportunity in the market and cost down the food that they spend on a daily basis, which we started from bubble tea. Yeah. This is our main concept. All right, and this right now is our page of Uproot, a little bit about our startup, and if we're interesting, please contact us, and we are looking forward to like more exposure. Okay, thank you.
Well, now we welcome comments from a PhD candidate, Ms. Asma Amina Belen.
I will start with Professor Nana. So this topic is quite broad, and you managed to cover a lot of industries. So that was really good. Thank you for that. Now I want to talk a little bit about the people-to-people connections. For example, being here, I am a student and I have not set up to do business. But because I'm here, sometimes I'm contacted by Burkinabés seeking to buy merchandise from Taiwan, whether it's textile or agricultural machinery. And at times, I talk to Taiwanese businesses also seeking to invest in Africa. And I'm sure that it's the same for Taiwanese. For example, if there is a successful business, Taiwanese business operating in Africa, in Nigeria, for example, the Taiwanese employees of these companies will become a point of contact, a link between Taiwan and Africa. And usually it's easy to trust and also navigate the language barriers. So I feel like the people-to-people connections have a positive spillover effect on the business link. But at the same time, we don't have so much of that between Taiwan and several other African countries. So if you can comment on that. And my second point is also the misconceptions about the African market. I have friends African friends working for Taiwanese companies, and at times I saw them complaining. Usually they face challenge in terms of bringing the business of their companies to Africa. Maybe they would think the bosses, they are not so much interested in the African market. There is that mindset that Africa is poor, so the purchasing power of the consumer is low, so yeah, it's not a good business investment. Yet if you have been in Africa and you know the market, you would know that in some sector, African consumer really spend a lot. So if you can talk a little bit about those misconceptions. And then my third point is the volatilities. Recently, you mentioned insecurity in your presentation, and then recently we have also seen a lot of coup d'etat in West Africa, and the investor, they don't like that. So it can be scary for them. So can you maybe, what do you think are the effective solutions aside from long-term political stability and peace? What other effective solutions are there to navigate these issues? And that's it for Professor Nana. So I'm going to you. So congratulations on winning the prize. Yeah, I'm really happy. It's nice to see those innovative problem-solving initiatives come to light. I can already dream of the day where maybe we will see the big businesses, maybe McDonald's or Starbucks, use your products. So it's really excellent. Now I have one question related to COVID-19. During the pandemic, we have seen an increase of food price. And as you mentioned also during your presentation, cassava is consumed in a lot of these countries. And sometimes it's cheaper than the imported grains, maybe rice. For example, West Africa imports a lot of rice. So, and in time of high food price, usually especially poor households, they tend to switch to locally produced items, i.e. Cassava. So I'm curious to know if the shock of the pandemic affects your industry. And then it leads me to a second question. Maybe in the future, do you plan to have like a vertically integrated business where you also control the supply to try to limit the impact of these kind of shocks? Yeah. Thank you.
I think we still have time to receive a feedback from our professor first.
Thank you for your comments, Asma. Incidentally, I did not know it was going to be a very short presentation. I had actually anticipated maybe I could have discussed some of these things towards the end. However, one, the question of people-to-people connection and the positive spillover effects on Taiwan, Africa business, and unfortunately, we do not have a lot of that. That's your first question. Well, yeah, that is factual. However, I think perhaps it may have something to do with the progressive policy of previous Taiwanese governments towards Africa. I do not know the history. Maybe those who have done a lot of studies will know, but I know that it will appear that following what happened at the UN, where a lot of African countries voted for the PRC instead of the R.O.C., it will appear that Taiwan has started evolving a policy of progressive withdrawal from Africa, and that has also affected the people-to-people connection. But there is an exception, and that exception is the Taba group. They've been very much present in Africa to the extent that they've weathered all the storms, and most of them are doing very good business in different parts of Africa. So if the Taiwanese government would borrow a leaf from what Taba has been able to achieve and perhaps build on it, I think there is prospect for them to improve the people-to-people relations. And there's also some other interesting things happening. One of those interesting things happening is that at the moment, there is, from all available statistics, there is a growing groundswell of negative opinions against the PRC in Africa right now. And this is an area that perhaps if the Taiwanese government works hard, they could win the people-to-people war. And if they win the people-to-people war, the rest will be history with time. So that's my response to that. They need to do a lot more in that area because right now that is not happening. I've also tried to make that suggestion in one of the recent papers I wrote on Taiwan-Africa relations, where there are so many opportunities where these people-to-people relations could be improved almost at no cost to the Taiwanese government. But these are things that will require some level of political will to bring it about. Then on the question of the misconceptions that has marked Taiwan-Africa relations, which tends to demarcate Africa in terms of a good investment place, and talking also leveraging off of the very negative stereotyping against Africa and leading to reluctance, of people from the Taiwan side to want to invest more in Africa. I think that is almost a systemic problem, and it's also to some degree related to to your last question, which is about so that's your last question, but then it's related to also the question of the volatility. The volatility issue is the second question. Now, okay, let me take the second question, then I'll dovetail into the next one. On the question of the volatilities and it's actually being an issue, I think it is not the way people are looking at it. Because if investors are a little bit more creative, they could well avoid all those volatilities. I mentioned it in my presentation, but I didn't have time to go into it. When the people in government present this kind of information, in African governments, for example, Nigerian government, I've been in some fora where they are presenting opportunities for investment, and strangely, those government officials were talking about, were urging investors to invest in those areas, those states that are actually experiencing Islamic insurgency. And I don't think that is a fair, it's not fair to tell someone who doesn't have any knowledge about what is going on to go to a place where there is insurgency. But that's what they're doing because of some or other political interests that they have. So that is a clue to how you could solve that. If Taiwanese businesses would, rather than swallowing stock, lock, and barrel, what people in government are telling them, look for alternative sources of information, for instance, working with researchers on the ground to get accurate information about how the environment is, the social milieu, the socio-political environment. They will know where to invest and where not to invest. Then again, on the issue of volatility, one other way you could navigate that is by going into joint businesses. If you have locals who are doing the same kind of business you're doing and you are doing a joint business, there's no way a local would work against, irrespective of whatever is happening there, a local is not going to work against the business that he or she is invested in terms of capital and all other resources. So that's one other way of navigating it. Another way of navigating is also the diplomatic route. Recently, there is the coups happening in West Africa, interestingly, about 3 coups within a period of less than 2 years. Now, you have in Guinea, I think, Guinea is one of the places. And the Guinean, the Malayan, the Guinean government and all these new regimes are interestingly kicking out the people they feel are colonialists. Yeah, for example, in Guinea, they are kicking out the PRC companies who are involved in bauxite mining, and they're looking to invest with others. And in Mali, they're kicking out the French, and they're inviting Russians and stuff like that. So volatility always doesn't have to be a negative thing. It could also be positive, depending on how diplomatically savvy people are. They could benefit from that. Then the other issue about the demarketing, this is something that is very deep because it goes all the way back to the colonial roots of the narratives against Africa, the Africa image. And this is something, it is strange that in the 21st century, in this day and age, these narratives are still allowed to proliferate. But however, we understand that those who own the media are still from the western part of the world, Europe, America, and all that. And is it not ironic that the same people who are demarketing Africa are the largest investors in Africa? Right now, the European Union has about 40% of the whole volume of trade with Africa. Okay, the Chinese, who also joined this demarketing campaign, the PRC, has about 20%. Okay, so this is when you understand that the idea is actually to discourage other people, other groups from coming in, so that they will have virtually a captive market. That's the idea in the demarketing. And once this is exposed and understood, then I don't see why investors and prospective investors from other regions wouldn't come to compete, because it's in the competition that they will also better their own lots. Thank you.
I think we still have time for you to have a short feedback.
Thank you, Besma, for your question. It's a really good questions. And about the 2 questions, first, it's about the alternative, like if cassava has a higher price or a lower price that could feed the market. But actually, for 2 types of business we're going to allocate in this area, we are looking for not only for like the first phase of food, like not directly food. It's more like after processing, like the starch and like the bubble tea. So which we are looking for at the really early stage. We will import lots of ingredient inside and like teach how to do this kind of business. But as we get bigger and we got our own processing figure, that we want to cost down the cost of all these products to local restaurant, local stands, and eventually cost down the exact food like cassava. So which we are looking for to make it as cheap as rice or even cheaper, because the raw material are already there. It just need to be revalued to different types of food industry, right? And the second one about the vertical integration, thank you for this question. This is what we are looking for, as it's basically a capitalism game and we are like a fund. So we are looking for a vertical. Right now we are mostly going to looking forward to JV with our raw material supplier, which are the most important part. But as we want to produce all kinds of uproot product, we need like really strong manufacturing process. So which it's hard for us to transfer into like Africa or any place that has sustainable raw material. But we are looking forward to do this. Yeah, thank you.
谢谢吕同学啊，我希望呢，他的在非洲的创业故事能够成功，成为新世代年轻人能够勇闯非洲的典范。那我不知道在座的其他听众有没有其他问题？如果没有的话，我们就结束这个场次。请问。
Sorry, because I'm a self-marketing guy used to be for last 20 years around this area, Asia Pacific. I saw a lot of tapioca for the industrial application. So I don't, have you ever, or you put any effort to gain this kind of industrial application, cassava or you call tapioca? What's the difference between those two?
Actually, in the processing factor, there's not necessarily a difference. What we need, it's eatable, like which are proof that's FDA, that we could eat. And any kind of this kind of tapioca could be our raw material in this starch reinventing process. And about like near the Pacific Ocean, I think you mentioned, and a lot of places. Right now, actually, we are using the tapioca from Thailand, which are the big. Yeah. Thailand. But actually, because we are like a student team and which participate in startup, so we want to show that we have the ability to make reevaluate a lot of cassava waste in like my teammates' motherland in South America and eventually in Africa, which it has a bigger market and bigger waste out there. So we start from Asian, which we want to make exposed, and eventually we want to build our own process in these kind of area that we could target the potential market, especially in Europe and North America, which it's more affordable, and we create work opportunity to the locals.
So have you ever tried to make the product here in Taiwan?
Yeah. We are making
so
product.
You have a big of a facility or reactor to make that for industrial use?
Right now, we are working with manufacturers that we ask them for help, more like ask them for help, and we get some of their productivity, but we need to like enlarge that productivity to have a more sustained supply chain system. Because right now we are producing in Taiwan, but we don't own our own manufacturer. We work with OEMs. We are more like a middleman right now, and we want to like.
We can talk maybe later.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
如果听众没有其他问题的话，我们就the end of these sessions